Open a world map, place your finger on the 62nd parallel north, and trace a straight line across the globe. Look at what you cross. On one side, the frozen tundras of Canada, on the other, the endless -40-degree icy expanses of Siberia. Brutal environments that push the very limits of human survival. Yet right on that same line, in the middle of the churning North Atlantic Ocean, rises a massive cluster of volcanic rock where not a single tree grows, the Faroe Islands. Now ask yourself this: how do more than 55,000 people survive on a harsh chain of islands hundreds of miles from the mainland, where traditional crops cannot grow and gale-force winds tear roofs off houses? Even more astonishing, how did the people here not just survive, but build one of the wealthiest, highest standard of living societies on Earth? Let's dive into nature's ultimate challenge and the unbelievable story of human resilience that conquered it. When you look at the islands on a map, the first thing you notice is a profound sense of isolation. Situated between Norway, Iceland, and Scotland, this archipelago was forged 60 million years ago by massive volcanic eruptions as Europe and Greenland ripped apart. Then came the Ice Age, where colossal glaciers sliced through the solid basalt rock like a knife, leaving behind sheer cliffs and narrow fjords. Step foot on the islands today, and you'll instantly notice something missing. There are no trees. None. Most people assume this is due to freezing Arctic cold. But the real culprit isn't the temperature, it's the atmosphere itself. With no landmass for thousands of miles to the west to break the weather, storms batter the islands at ferocious speeds. Corrosive ocean salt spray and relentless gales destroy any sapling before it can ever take root. When the earliest settlers arrived, they had no wood to build homes and no timber for fires. If you were stranded in a place like this, what would you do first? The first people to set foot on these desolate rocks weren't conquerors. They were 6th century Irish monks seeking absolute silence to pray. But in the 9th century, long ships emerging from the northern mist changed everything. The Vikings. The Norsemen brought hardy sheep with them. In fact, the native name Faroe translates directly to sheep islands. Yet, how did the Vikings build a civilization without trees? The answer lies in an incredible stroke of geographic luck: ocean currents. Timber, drifting from Siberian rivers thousands of miles away, was carried across the Arctic and deposited directly onto Faroese shores. The Vikings used this scavenged driftwood to frame their houses, built thick stone walls, and topped them with heavy turf roofs. Those iconic grass-roofed homes, still seen across the islands today, provided some of the most effective natural insulation against brutal Atlantic storms. They organized so rapidly that by the year 900, they established their assembly in what is now Tórshavn, making it one of the oldest continuous parliaments in human history. How do these people live without freezing? How does a place on the same latitude as Siberia maintain an average winter temperature of around 4 degrees Celsius? Enter nature's ultimate geographic shortcut, the Gulf Stream. This massive oceanic conveyor belt pumps warm water straight from the Caribbean to the shores of the Faroe Islands, acting as a planetary space heater. Yet even with mild temperatures, a far more dangerous obstacle remained: topography. Divided across 18 jagged islands, communities were cut off by sheer mountains and deadly ocean straits. Visiting relatives in a neighboring village meant hiking for days across stormy passes or risking your life rowing through boat-crushing currents. The violent winds made building bridges completely impossible. So, when you can't go over the land and you can't cross the sea, what do? You go underground. Faroese engineers carved an extensive network of tunnels beneath the mountains and the ocean floor. In 2020, they completed a viral engineering marvel, the world's first underwater roundabout, illuminated at the bottom of the sea like a glowing jellyfish. Lethal, hours-long boat journeys turned into a smooth, minutes-long drive beneath the ocean. This brings us to the multi-million-dollar question. How does a tiny population of 55,000 afford billion-dollar subsea highway networks? The Faroes turned their greatest historical obstacle into their biggest financial asset, the violent ocean. They realized that the deep, cold, pristine, and fast-moving waters surrounding the islands offered the ideal environment for aquaculture, specifically Atlantic salmon. By installing high-tech marine pens in the fjords, constantly flushed by oxygen-rich currents, they created a globally dominant industry producing the most sought-after salmon on Earth. Today, the Faroe Islands boast one of the highest GDPs per capita globally. To protect their lucrative fishing rights, they have even deliberately chosen not to join the European Union, despite being part of the Danish realm. The story of the Faroe Islands proves that even in the most hostile environments, humans don't have to surrender to nature. We can learn its rules and turn them to our advantage. Would you ever live in an isolated, treeless yet ultra-wealthy place like this? Or would the silence and raw weather be too much for you? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this geographic deep dive, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss our next journey to the most extraordinary corners of the planet. See you in the next one.